Welcome to My Asshole Podcast. Let's get into it. Welcome to My Asshole Podcast. Today is Thursday and we got a beautiful, juicy episode for you guys today. Woo! We're going to be doing a juicy little thread as well as getting into King of Wrath, I believe, chapters 17 and 18. Oh, man. It is heating up. They haven't fucked yet. Oh, it's going to happen, though. I know it. They're going to get to it sooner or later. That's usually Anna Huang for you, you know. She always waits for, like, that perfect build-up moment. I'm excited. Can't wait for it to. I know that you guys are excited. But before we get into today's episode, before we get into the book, let's get into our thread. Our thread is Uber driver. What's the deepest secret? Deepest secret you've overheard in your car. All right. So let's see what's going on with the Uber drivers. We did do an Uber driver one before, and I thought that one was absolutely fucking hilarious, so I had to do another one. So this one is Uber drivers. What's the deepest secret you have heard in your car? Two girls talking about how they fucked the same guy. Both agreed his dick was too big and he was hurting them by lasting too long. Both concluded he was gay. What? Okay. Two middle-aged couples trying to agree to a foursome. That's crazy. That is what. Imagine you're just driving and they're just like, no. You know, I fuck Stacy, you fuck Jimmy. Like, it's all good. Like, everything is fine. We're great. Like, we could do this, right? They're like, I don't know. Like, Stacy, are you really okay with fucking Jim? Like, Jim does look like he got the hepatitis. And I ain't got no hepatitis. What's going on? It looks like Sally over there got the hepatitis. But that must have been an awkward conversation to kind of just like be in the middle of, you know. The other one, that's crazy though. And just because homeboy packing, he got the big schmeat, all of a sudden he's gay, that's crazy. That's some wild shit, man. All right, Uber drivers, what's the deepest secrets you have heard in your car? I could go on for days with these, but this one takes the cake. It's not a secret, but just one of the many insane experiences. So I picked up a guy in a suit around 6 p.m. on Tuesday near Venice, California. He told me to take him downtown, and per usual, I asked if he had a preferred route. He said, no, whatever is quickest. We get going, and the usual banter begins. So how long have you been driving Uber? Me, 1 year or so. It's a great job. He says, oh, cool. Where did you stay at? I answered, in the valley. And he says, oh, nice. So how long have you been driving for Uber? I paused and kind of half smiled, thinking he was fucking with me. He wasn't, so I answered verbatim, 1 year or so. It's a great job. He goes, oh, cool. Where do you stay at?
Bruh.
This repeated 3 more times before I finally answered it differently, saying I just started. It's not for me. And him replying, oh, cool. Where do you stay at? I answered. At this point, I would just stop talking to him. I would just turn on some music, turn it up real quick, and I would just stop talking to dude because it's like, bro, you've already asked me this 3 times, and then I answered it differently. You still asking me the same questions, bro. You're not listening. That's what it comes down to. You're not listening. It's cool. I ain't tripping. You know what I mean? At that point, you just let it go, bro. That is crazy. Okay. I answered one last time the original way, but then finally silence. But by this point, I was on the 10 highway, stuck in rush hour traffic. I look in my rear view, and he's rubbing his head with hair profusely, like someone going through withdrawals. He took his suit jacket off and looked severely uncomfortable. I dialed 911 on my phone in case shit went down. He then, out of nowhere, yells in a deeper voice than earlier, "Fuck!" And I said, sir, is everything all right? And he goes, where are we? I said, on the 10 heading downtown. Is that still okay? He goes, yes. At this point, by the grace of the universe, we ended up moving pretty quickly through traffic. Then right before we exit off the 10, 2 miles or so from his apartment, he yelled again, where are we? I said, sir, we're almost to your house. Is that still okay? And he goes, yes, that's fine. Once we arrive, I pull up to drop him off, and he gathers his stuff, opens the door, and looks back in at me before walking away in the most genuine kind way. He says, have a great night. Watch out for crazy people.
Bruh.
What? Bro, you've been the craziest person in my car so far. What the heck? That is great. Honestly, one of the strangest, creepiest events ever. Subsequently, I bought a stun gun / taser, and luckily so, as this was just the beginning of several crazy incidents. So damn glad I don't drive anymore. Bro, what the? Yeah, that was a crackhead, man. I ain't gonna lie to you. If you've ever been to LA, there is a lot of normal looking people that are absolutely crackheads. They are just the crackest of the crackest heads people. You're like, what the? And it's crazy because you won't know until you talk to them. You won't know. They look completely normal. You're just like, oh yeah, looks like a fine dude. Oh yeah, looks like a great girl. You talk to them and they're just like, hey, oh, huh? Yeah. And you're just like, what the fuck? Where did this come from? And then they're all acting normal for a while. And then they get weird and crazy. Yeah, bro. LA is something. LA is something. LA people are a different breed. I ain't gonna lie to you. You know. Yeah, that's absolutely wild. I thought it was funny as hell that he asked him the same damn questions over and over again. Like, bro, what is going on? All right, Uber drivers, what is the deepest secrets you have heard in your car? I picked up this young, overly affectionate couple that spent the entire trip making out in my back seat and telling each other that they loved each other. Cute. So I dropped off the couple and head on my way to pick up my text fare. I hear a cell phone ring in my back seat, realize it's my previous rides, and pick up the phone to let them know I have it and I'll come back and drop it off. Turns out it was the guy's wife phoning to check in on him while he was on a business trip, which he was thoroughly enjoying with his mistress. Oh, shit. Now, it's one of those things where it's like, at this moment, do I blow up his spot? Or do I just kind of leave it alone? Because I ain't going to lie to you, you could blow up his spot and be like, oh, this is his Uber driver. And he was actually in a car with a lady and they were making out and talking about how much they loved each other. That wasn't you? Oh, well, yeah, I'm going to drive back. I'm going to give him his phone and you can have some choice words with him. And you can just drive away and he would never be able to, like, he might give you a 1-star on Uber, but, that's crazy though, bruh. Like, to have that much power in your hand as an Uber driver would be wild. Wild. Like, you literally hold this man's life in your hands right now. Like, you blow up his spot just by being like, oh yeah, there was a lady in this car. Like, bruh, that's crazy. Wow, man. I kind of feel like it was fate though that you were supposed to blow his spot up, because think about it. Like, he leaves his phone in there and it gets called and it's not by the girl, it's by his wife, and like, I don't know. Uber drivers, what's the deepest secrets you have heard in your car? Uber passenger here had a driver tell me that he was changing his name to Nilrim because it was Merlin spelled backwards and he was a wizard. I'd have been like, okay, bro. Cool, man. I guess so. Hey, man. Do you, man? Do you? Some people are, yeah. Yeah, some people just don't live in this world. You know what I mean? Uber drivers, what's the deepest secrets that you have heard in your car? Once I had an extremely drunk middle-aged couple fight for an entire 30-minute ride. They attempted to bring me into their fight many a times. I just pretended like I was deaf and didn't answer. When they tried to rope me into it, that's crazy, bro. I can't stand when people try to like bring you into shit. You know what I mean? Like, bro, that's your problem, man. I hate when like two people that I know are like fighting and then they try to bring me into it. I'm like, bro, don't bring me into this. Look, I I don't know what's going on. I want to keep not knowing what's going on. You guys deal with that. You know what I mean? Like, what the fuck is going on here? Like, I get it. They look at it like they want, a third person perspective or a third person to kind of agree or, have it solidify whatever it is they're feeling or whatever the case may be. But if I'm being honest with you, bro, I hate being put in that position. Because then they sit there and blame you, like the person obviously that you don't agree with sits there and blames you, and they're just like, oh, well, why the hell are you not taking my side? What the fuck's wrong with you? And it's like, I don't know. Dude asked me, and he made a good point, but what's your point then? And now you're in the middle of this shit, and you're just like, fuck, dude. What the hell's going on? What's next? You know what I mean? So, like, yeah, I don't like to be put in the middle of shit. Oh my God, there's no way in hell I would have done the same thing. I would have just ignored it. I don't want to be a part of it. I know nothing about it, man. I ain't gonna lie to you. All right, Uber drivers, what's the deepest secrets that you have heard in your car? I know this is the opposite of what you asked, but because I'm a passenger, not a driver, I had an Iraqi driver tell me he was an engineer in Iraq before the first Gulf War, and he developed a superior means of gilding furniture, chandeliers, etc., which you can imagine was hot and pre-war. Husseinville, okay. Oh, Husseinville. Well, Uday wanted to go into business with him, and this is a direct quote, first Uday wants to be your partner in business, then he wants to be partner in your wife. What? What? Huh? So the driver was just like, oh, yes, I used to be a rack. I used to be an engineer over there. It was great. And then my friend Uday, he said, do you want to be a business partner? And then I was like, yes, we could be business partner. But then he was like, business partner in my wife. And I was like, what the hell, Uday? Why are you business partner in my wife? That's crazy. Like, sure, dude, I guess. Like, I don't know. I'd be sitting in the back of that Uber like, well, all right, bro. Like, sure, man. Yeah, I guess. I don't know. That's crazy. All right, Uber drivers, what is the deepest secrets that you have heard in your car? Passenger here, not a driver. I live in New York City, and I had to call the suicide hotline while coming home in an Uber from work because it was the only place where I could be more or less alone. I am so thankful to the driver for being patient while I was crying and saying really fucked up things. It was so obvious it was the last thing he wanted to deal with that night. Oh, shit. Bro. Oh, wow. Damn, man. I hope that you got some help and that you're doing better because, yeah. That is absolutely very serious. Damn. Hold on. Oh my goodness. I lost my place. Okay, here we go. Yeah, dude. Shit. I hope that dude is doing better and I hope he's doing well because sometimes you never know who it's going to be that'll be kind of like that pivotal person to really help you out. Like, if it wasn't for that Uber driver, you know what I mean? Dude probably would have, like, ended it all. You never even know. You know what I mean? That's crazy. Absolutely crazy. All right, Uber drivers, what is the deepest secret that you have heard in your car? My friend Ubers in my hometown picked up some really nice girls out on a first Friday. They're talking about their plans for next autumn. Guy thinks he recognizes one of them. Turns out to be my younger sister, and he tells me all about it. And that's how I found out my little sister was moving to Spain. Oh, shit. So what? She didn't tell nobody, or what the fuck was going on with that? That's probably got to be like the craziest part about Ubering, especially if you Uber like in your hometown and stuff. You know what I mean? Picking up people you know and like giving rides to people that know, you know what I mean? People that you know and stuff. That's probably got to be the craziest part of it. You know what I mean? Like, think about it. Hell, even if you're doing like Uber Eats, you know what I mean? You go to somebody's house and then they're just like, oh yeah, I know you. I saw you in high school, or we went to this or that together. That would be kind of crazy. You know what I mean? I bet homeboy called him real quick and was just like, bro, guess what? Like, I gave your sister and her friends a ride and shit, and she's talking about going to Spain and this and that. And homeboy was probably just like, what the fuck? All right, Uber drivers, what's the deepest secret that you have heard in your car? Drove Uber one night. It was pretty tame until picked up two guys who wanted to go to a strip club 40 miles away. As they requested an Uber Select fare, I was happy to drive that far for $80 to $100. It took them 15 minutes to get ready and into the car, and they seemed cool, so I wasn't worried. As soon as we get on the freeway, the guy in the passenger seat started asking about Uber driving, and things got dark. After a few minutes, he started saying shit like, what would you do if someone just grabbed the steering wheel and ran the car into the median? And have you ever thought about what would happen if someone in the back seat tried to strangle you while you were driving? I got a little freaked out and tried to lighten the mood by asking what they were celebrating, etc. But the one guy just kept at it. I was happy to get to the strip club and get them the hell out of my car. Bonus was the bouncer at the club gave me $40 for dropping them off there. I never drove Uber again. Fuck that. Yeah, hell yeah. I guarantee you he's one of those people where his intrusive thoughts just win all the time. You know what I mean? Like, I truly feel like there are people who, you know, they have these just crazy intrusive thoughts and they just let them win all the time. You know what I mean? Because I ain't gonna lie to you, I be having some intrusive thoughts as well, but I fight hard as hell to not let them win. You know what I mean? I'd be like, no, we're not doing that. Nope, that's a crazy intrusive thought. Nope, we're good. I'm gonna just keep that one to myself, because I ain't gonna lie to you, bro. Those people that have those intrusive thoughts, a lot of times they go about doing them. You know what I mean? Like, think about it. If you said to that dude, you know, oh man, that would never happen, you know, that's crazy, I feel like he would probably try to do it. You know what I mean? I would stop driving Uber right after that one. I ain't gonna lie to you. I'd be like, yeah, no, I'm good. I am good. I think if you drive Uber, have a gun, or have a taser, have something. You know what I mean? Have something, because you just never know with people, especially nowadays. You know what I mean? Nowadays, people are kind of crazy like a motherfucker. Like, that is insane. All right, we're going to do two more, and then we'll get into announcements, and we'll get into the book. Uber driver, what is your deepest secret that you have heard in your car? Former Uber driver here picked up a girl, a sweet girl from a bar on a Wednesday night, absolutely hammered about 10 p.m. She got into my car, apologized for being so drunk, and politely asked if we could just drive around a little while with the windows down. I was prepping for a cleaning fee, trying to drive and pull a vomit bag out of the glove box, but no, she just did that airplane thing with one hand out of the back seat window and asked me if I ever thought about dying, to which I replied, yeah, I guess so. That's when she told me that she had cancer. It was in her brain and it was too far gone to consider chemo. I remember my heart just pounding. She told me she was dying and she was going to be okay. Tonight, she was celebrating with her friends who threw her a going away party. Oh my gosh. She told them she was taking a position abroad. I just didn't tell them that abroad was heaven. Jesus fucking Christ. I turned off my app and cried my ass all the way home, bruh. Oh my God. That is crazy. I won't lie to you, man. There are times where I weirdly think about like my mortality, you know, and it trips me out because like I was watching this show, and you guys might have seen it on Netflix. It's called Alice in Borderland, and you know it has like these dark undertones about like death and stuff like that because you know a bit of a spoiler, but like they're in this world playing these games and you have to like survive the games and stuff like that in order to get out of the world. But in the real world, they're actually like dead, sort of like their heart is stopped. And, you know, they have quote unquote 2 minutes to pretty much, you know, beat this game and like get out of the game. And then, you know, your heart starts back up and then you can go back into the world, or you could choose to stay in there or you die in the games and stuff. And then, you know, obviously if you die in the game, you die in real life, so on and so forth. But in the last season, you know, it really like touched on the whole idea of, you know, like coming to terms and being okay with the fact that you're going to die and that it eventually come and all that stuff. And I was thinking to myself like, damn, holy shit, like eventually I'm going to die. Like eventually this is going to happen. And it must be crazy for like people who kind of can predict when they're going to be dead or even know when they're going, just because, you know, you and I, you know, me and the listener, the other person that's, you know, listening or watching right now, you know, we don't know when we're going to pass away. And the fact that these people do, and they're not afraid, you know, they're ready to take it on. And, you know, they're like, hey, this is what it is crazy to me. You know, just that thought is just like, wow, man. That already kind of, you know, gives me the heebie-jeebies a little bit. You know what I mean? Oh my God. Wow. All right. This will be our last one. Then we'll get into announcements and then we'll get right into the book. All right. So Uber drivers, what's the deepest secrets you have heard in your car? Picked up a girl mid-Saturday. She was a bit upset and a little teary and opened up to me. She turned out a business she had started was failing and she was in debt and had to turn to stripping on the side to cover bills. Wow. She said the pay was good, but she kept getting really sick from all the booze. She felt obligated to drink. Part of the job was making guys spend money at the bar. She hated it and felt trapped and kept asking me what I would do in her situation. I'm a guy, so kind of hard for me to answer. Tried to give her the best advice I could. Think of like getting the tax office to withhold tax for a while, but couldn't really help. Only thing I could do was end the trip early. Other one was a couple of off-duty cops who didn't want their friends to know they were using it. Uber is still in a legal gray area here. Oh, wow. Oh, that's crazy. I didn't know there were certain places where Uber was technically illegal to some degree. I did not know that. But damn, man, I really feel like Uber drivers be going through it, bro. You know, I feel like Uber driving is one of those things where it's like fucking therapy for people. You know what I mean? And I get it though, because it's like, I can tell this person this and I'm never going to see them again. You know what I mean? So it won't matter like if I do tell them this stuff or not. It's not like I'm ever going to see them again. So it does make sense to that degree. But man, that is crazy. You know, I mean, I would have gave her, you know, some decently practical advice. You know, I mean, I get it. Stripping is, you know, good money and all, but at the same time, be like, girl, get on Seeking Arrangements and try to find you a sugar daddy, girl. Like, what the fuck are we doing? I'm just saying. But damn, Ah, shoot. Well, that's going to go ahead and be the end of that thread. Hope you guys enjoyed. Let me know what you think about all the scenarios we got, or all of the, situations that we went over with this thread. Interesting. Interesting. Uber is a job I've never done before. And so, that's why I had asked the question, because I'm like, Uber is one of those odd jobs where, you deal with all walks of life, and you have some crazy scenarios, and it's not really like in the public, if you will. So a lot of people are kind of willing to do some crazy shit, you know what I mean? Because they look at it like, well, I'm in this car and I'm never going to see this person again, so it doesn't really matter. So, they be hearing some crazy stories, experiencing some crazy things, but man, woo, that's that thread. But we'll hop to announcements, get through those really quick, and then we'll get right into it. So, patreon.com/MyLastWill Podcast. Exclusive episode every single Friday, as well as being able to sit in your scenario to be featured on the Tuesday and Sunday show. If you are a 7-day free trial member or a fully paid member, then if you are an audio listener, you can listen to all of the Patreon episodes on Spotify. The link to those episodes are down in the description, as long as you are a 7-day free trial member or you are a full paid member. So if you're a Spotify listener and you enjoy the podcast and you've caught up on all the content that I have put out for free for you guys, and you want a little more, definitely start your 7-day free trial, binge it up, and you can cancel then, or you can keep it and enjoy your free episode every Friday. Or not your free episode, but your episode every Friday. All right, so audio listeners, keep downloading the episodes, as well as rating us 5 stars on your preferred platform. I appreciate all the support you guys have been showing. Thank you guys so very much. And all that is free, and it helps out a lot. If you want to help out even more on the free 99 side, go ahead and follow us on Instagram, TikTok, as well as subscribing on YouTube. All of that helps out so tremendously. If you like live streams, we live stream every Friday, Sunday, and Monday. So come and hang out with your boy. We go live on TikTok, Twitch, Kick, as well as YouTube. So, I try to stream everywhere, so that way you guys can, watch where you want to watch. You know what I mean? But without further ado, let's get into today's book, or 2 chapters of King of Wrath. I know you guys are excited to get into these episodes as much as I am, so let's get on into it. Let's move you guys on over.
Chapter 17. Dante. Vivian did end up speaking to one of our therapists after the Lohman and Sons incident. She never discussed her sessions, but by the time we arrived in Bali, her sleep had improved and she was mostly back to her normal, witty, sarcastic self. I told myself my relief had nothing to do with her personally, and that I was simply glad she was in the right headspace to meet my parents.
Are you sure your parents live here?
Vivian stared at the villa in front of us. Hand-hewn sculptures dotted the lawn in a riot of primary colors, and an overabundance of wind chimes tinkled by the front door. Giant sunflowers sprouted up the walls in splashes of yellow and green paint. It looked like a cross between a luxury villa and a daycare center. Yes. The place had Janice Russo written all over it. The front door flew open, revealing a mass of curly brown hair and a floor-length caftan. Prepare yourself.
Darling!
My mother cried.
Oh, it's so wonderful to see you, my baby boy.
She rushed toward us and embraced me in a cloud of patchouli.
Have you lost weight? Are you eating enough? Sleeping enough? Having sex enough?
Vivian disguised her laugh with a delicate cough. I grimaced as my mother pulled back and examined me with a critical eye. Hello, Mother.
Stop. I told you to call me Janice. You're always so formal. I blame Enzo.
She told Vivian.
His grandfather was a real stickler for the rules. You know, he kicked someone out of a dinner party once for using the wrong fork? Started a whole international incident because the guest was the son of a UN ambassador. Though to be fair, you'd expect the son of a UN ambassador to know which fork is used for salads and which is used for entrees. Isn't that right?
Vivian blinked, seemingly stunned by the whirlwind of energy before her.
Now let me take a look at you.
My mother released me and placed her hands on Vivian's shoulders.
Oh, you're beautiful. Isn't she beautiful, Dante? Tell me, darling, what do you use for your skin? It's positively glowing. Argan oil? Snail mucin? La Mer?
Vivian caught my eye over my mother's head. "Help me," her gaze begged. My mouth tugged up in a reluctant smile. For all my mother's over-the-top effusiveness, she was right. Vivian was beautiful. Even after a 12-hour flight, she glowed in a way that had nothing to do with her physical appearance. A strange sensation coasted through my chest. "Yes," I said. "She is." Vivian's eyes widened a fraction while my mother beamed harder. We held each other's stares for a suspended moment until my father's voice boomed across the lawn. "Dante!" He strode through the front door, lean and tanned in a linen shirt and shorts. "Good to see you, son." He clapped a hand on my back before engulfing Vivian in a bear hug. "And you, my daughter-in-law. I can't believe it. Tell me, has Dante ever taken you scuba diving?"
No.
"No?" His voice boomed louder. "Why the hell not? I've been telling him to take you diving since you got engaged. You know we conceived Luca after—" I cut in before my parents could embarrass themselves and me further. "Leave her alone, Father. As fascinating, scarring, as the story of Luca's conception is, we'd like to freshen up. It's been a long flight."
Of course.
My mother fluttered around us like a jeweled hummingbird.
Come. We have your room all ready for you. Luca doesn't arrive until tonight, so you have the second floor to yourselves for now. So that's your family,
Vivian said as we followed my parents into the villa.
They're not what I expected.
"Don't let their hippie facade fool you," I said. "My father is still a Russo and my mother used to be a management consultant. Ask them to give up their credit cards and really rough it and see how mellow they are." The airy 2-story villa was filled with natural woods, cream crochet, and bright local art adorning the walls. The backyard boasted an infinity pool and open-air yoga studio, and the 4 bedrooms were split half and half between the ground floor where my parents stayed and the upper floor.
This is your room.
My mother flung open the door with a flourish.
We spruced it up just for you.
Vivian's mouth parted in shock while a migraine bloomed at the base of my skull. "Mother,"
What?
she said innocently.
It's not every day my son and future daughter-in-law visit for Thanksgiving. I figured you'd like a more romantic atmosphere for your stay.
The migraine spread up my neck and behind my eyes with alarming speed. My mother's idea of romantic was my idea of a nightmare. Red rose petals blanketed the floor. A bucket of chilled champagne sat on the nightstand next to 2 crystal flutes, while a box of chocolates, condoms, and towels, folded into the shape of swans, rested at the base of the canopy bed. A fucking couple portrait of me and Vivian hung on the wall opposite the bed beneath a glittery banner that read, "Congratulations on your engagement." It looked like a goddamn honeymoon suite, except it was infinitely more horrifying because my own mother set it up. "How the hell did you get the portrait?" I demanded.
I used a photo from your engagement party as inspiration.
Pride gleamed in my mother's eyes.
How do you like it? It's not my best work, but I'm in a bit of a creative rut.
I was going to murder someone before the end of the trip. There was no way around it. Whether it was my mother, father, or brother, it was going to happen.
It's lovely.
Vivian said with a gracious smile.
You captured the moment perfectly.
I pinched the bridge of my nose while my mother blushed.
Oh, you're too sweet. I knew I liked you.
She patted Vivian's arm.
Anyway, I'll leave you two to get settled in. If you need more condoms, let me know.
She winked at us before darting out the door. My father followed, too busy on his phone to pay attention to what was happening. Silence descended, thick and heavy. Vivian's smile disappeared after my mother left. We stared at the portrait, then at each other, then at the bed. It suddenly hit me that this would be our first time sharing a room, sharing a bed. 6 days and 5 nights of sleeping next to her. Of seeing her in those ridiculously tiny outfits she called pajamas and listening to the water run while she bathed. 6 days and 5 nights of fucking torture. I rubbed a hand over my face. It was going to be a long week.
Vivian. Dante's parents were the opposite of their son. Free-spirited, effervescent, and gregarious, with quick smiles and somewhat inappropriate senses of humor. After Dante and I settled in, they insisted on taking us to lunch at their favorite restaurant, where they peppered us with more questions. I want to know everything. How you met, how he proposed. Janice rested her chin in her hands. Despite her bohemian clothing and attitude, she possessed the sheen of a New England socialite. High cheekbones, perfect skin, and the type of rich, glossy hair that took copious amounts of time and money to maintain. Don't skimp on any details.
I know her father.
Dante said before I could answer.
We met at a dinner party at her parents' house in Boston and hit it off. We dated and I proposed a few months later.
Technically true. Ah. Janice frowned, looking disappointed by Dante's unromantic summary of our courtship before she brightened again. And the proposal? I was tempted to tell her he left the ring on my bedside table just to see how she'd react, but I didn't have the heart to crush her hopes. Time to brush off my acting skills. I hadn't played Eliza Doolittle in my high school's production of Pygmalion for nothing. It happened in Central Park, I said smoothly. It was a gorgeous morning, and I thought we were simply going for a walk. Janice and Johnny listened, their expressions enraptured, as I spun a dramatic story featuring flowers, tears, and swans. Dante appeared less charmed. His frown deepened with each word out of my mouth, and when I reached the part about him wrestling the swan who'd tried to run off with my brand-new engagement ring, he gave me a look so dark it could have snuffed out the sun.
Swan wrestling, eh?
Johnny, as he insisted on being called, laughed.
Dante, non manchi mai di sorprendermi. Anch'io non finisco mai di sorprendermi.
Dante muttered. I stiffed a smile. What a unique proposal! I can see why you went to the trouble to get the ring back. It's stunning. Janice lifted my hand and examined the obscenely large diamond. It was so heavy that lifting my arm qualified as a workout. Dante's always had a good eye, though I'd expected... Dante tensed. Janice cleared her throat and dropped my hand. Anyway, like I said, it's a beautiful ring. Curiosity kindled in my chest when she and Johnny exchanged glances. What had she been about to say?
We're sorry we couldn't make it to the engagement party,
Johnny added, cutting through the sudden tension.
We would have loved to be there, but there was a festival featuring a local artist who hadn't attended a public event in 10 years that same weekend.
He's so talented, Janice piped up. We simply couldn't miss the opportunity to see him. I paused, waiting for the punchline. It never came. Horror crawled through me. That was why they'd missed their son's engagement party? To meet some artist they didn't even know? Next to me, Dante sipped his drink, his expression like granite. He appeared neither surprised nor perturbed by the revelation. An unexpected pang hit my chest. How many times had his parents chosen their selfish desires over him, for him to be so blasé about them missing his engagement? I knew they weren't close, considering Johnny and Janice left him with his grandfather. But still, they could have at least made up a decent excuse for why they weren't there. I brought a salt-cured prawn to my mouth, but the formerly delicious seafood suddenly tasted like cardboard. After lunch, Johnny and Janice encouraged us to take a nice stroll along the beach behind the restaurant while they finished their post-lunch meditation, whatever that meant. Your parents seem nice, I ventured as we walked along the shore.
As people, maybe. As parents, not so much.
I slid a sideways glance at him, surprised by his candor. Dante's linen shirt and pants lent him a more casual air than usual, but his features remained strikingly bold, his body powerful and his jaw hard as he walked beside me. He looked invincible. But that was the thing about humans. No one was invincible. They were all vulnerable to the same hurts and insecurities as everyone else. Some people just hid it better. Another pang rippled through my chest when I remembered how cavalier his parents had been about missing the engagement party. Your grandfather raised you and Luca, right? I knew this, but I couldn't think of a better way to ease into the subject. Dante responded with a curt nod.
My parents took off around the world soon after Luca was born. They couldn't bring 2 children on their travels, given how much they moved around, so they left us in our grandfather's care. They said it was for the best.
Did they visit often?
Once a year at most. They sent postcards on Christmas and our birthdays.
He spoke in a dry, detached tone.
Luca kept his in a special box. I threw mine out.
I'm sorry, I said, my throat tight. You must have missed them very much. Dante had been a kid at the time, barely old enough to comprehend why his parents were suddenly there one day and gone the next. Mine weren't perfect, but I couldn't imagine them dumping me at a relative's house so they could jet set around the world.
Don't be. My parents were right. It was for the best.
We stopped at the edge of the beach.
Don't be fooled by their hospitality, Vivian. They fuss over me whenever they see me because they don't see me often, and it makes them feel like they're doing their job as parents. They'll take us out to eat, buy us nice things, and ask about our lives. But if you ask them to stick around during the hard times, they're gone.
What about your brother? What's his relationship with them?
Luca was an accident. I was planned because they needed an heir. My grandfather demanded it. But when my brother came along, taking care of 2 children was too much for my parents, and they bailed.
So your grandfather took over instead?
He was thrilled.
Dante's dry tone returned.
My father disappointed him on the business front, but he could mold me into his perfect successor from a young age.
And he had. Dante was one of the most successful CEOs in the Fortune 500. He'd tripled the company's profits since taking over. But at what cost? Let me guess. He took you to boardroom playdates and gave you cartoon explainers on the stock market? I quipped, hoping to ease the tension lining his shoulders. The empathetic part of me wanted to shift to a lighter topic. The selfish part wanted to dig deeper. This was the most insight I'd gotten into Dante's background, and I worried one wrong word would cause him to shut down again. Faint amusement ghosted through his eyes.
Close. My grandfather ran his household the way he ran his business. He was the first, last, and only word on any subject. Everything operated by a strict set of rules, from our playtime hours to what hobbies Luca and I were allowed to pursue. I was 7 when I took my first factory tour, 10 when I started learning about contracts and negotiations.
In other words, he'd lost his childhood to his grandfather's ambitions. A deep ache unfurled behind my ribs.
Don't feel sorry for me,
Dante said, correctly assessing my expression.
The Russo Group wouldn't be where it is now if it weren't for him and what he taught me.
There's more to life than money and business, I said softly.
Not in our world.
A gentle breeze swept by, ruffling his hair.
People can join as many charities as they want, donate as much money as they want, but at the end of the day, it's about the bottom line. Look at Tim and Arabella Creighton. They were once superstars in Manhattan society. Now Tim's facing trial, and no one will touch Arabella with a 10-foot pole. All her supposed friends dropped her.
Dante's mouth twisted.
If you think any of the people who kiss my ass now will stick around if the company folded tomorrow, you're sorely mistaken. The only languages they understand are money, power, and strength. Those that have it will do anything to keep it. Those who don't will do anything to get it.
That's a terrible way to go through life, I said. even though I'd witnessed those scenarios play out enough times to know he was right.
Some things make it better.
My heart faltered, then picked up speed again. Dante and I stood on a secluded stretch of beach, close enough to see the restaurant, but far enough that its sounds and crowds didn't touch us. A fissure cleaved his stony mask, revealing a trace of weariness that tugged at my soul. CEO Dante was all stern frowns and hard commands. This Dante was more vulnerable, more human. I'd spotted glimpses of him before, but this was the first time I'd been in his presence for so long. It felt like sinking into a warm bath after a long day in the rain.
This wasn't how I'd planned to spend our first day in Bali,
he said.
I promise family history lessons aren't the norm here.
There's nothing wrong with a history lesson. But I switched to a more playful tone. I want to learn more about this diving your father was talking about. I've never been to Bali before. What else is there to do? Dante's shoulders relaxed.
Don't bring up diving in front of my father or he'll talk your ear off,
he said as we started our walk back to the restaurant. We'd been gone for almost an hour. His parents must be wondering what happened to us.
To be fair, the island is one of the top diving destinations in the world. There are also some beautiful temples and a great art scene in Ubud.
I half-listened as he ran through the top activities in Bali. I was too distracted by his voice to pay attention to his words. Deep and velvety, with a faint Italian accent that did unspeakable things to my insides. I'd teased him about loving Kai's British accent at Valhalla, but it was his I couldn't get enough of. Not just the voice, but the intelligence, loyalty, vulnerability, and humor that lurked deep, deep beneath his grumpy surface. Somewhere along the way, Dante Russo had morphed from a caricature of a rich, arrogant CEO into an actual human. One I liked, for the most part. It was awful. No matter what happened at Valhalla, or how much Dante shared about himself, I couldn't delude myself into thinking our relationship was anything more than what it was. That was a surefire way to a broken heart, and I already had enough broken things in my life. Dante stepped closer to me to let another couple pass. Our fingers brushed, and my traitorous heart leaped into my throat. This is just business, I reminded myself. If I said it enough times, maybe I'd believe it. Chapter 18. Vivian. Over the next 3 days, Dante and his parents took me on a crash tour of Bali. We scuba dived in Nusa Penida, trekked to waterfalls in Munduk, and visited temples in Gianyar. The Russos had a private driver and boat, which made traversing the island easier. By the time Thanksgiving night rolled around, I'd tanned into a golden brown and forgotten all about the pile of work waiting for me in New York. Even Dante frowned less. I was glad I'd taken him up on his offer to see one of his company's therapists. Though I could have probably moved past the robbery without therapy over time, talking with Dr. Cho helped me process it in a way I couldn't have on my own. Our sessions would continue after Thanksgiving, but for now, they were enough to ensure my trip wasn't marred by sleepless nights and flashbacks to the press of metal against my chin. "Luca, get off your phone," Janice admonished during dinner. "It's rude to text at the table."
Sorry.
He continued texting, his plate of food untouched. Luca had arrived Monday night and spent the majority of his time texting, sleeping, and lounging by the pool. It was like being on vacation with a teenager, except he was in his 30s and not his teens. Janice pursed her lips, Johnny shook his head, and I quietly ate my potatoes while tension gathered over the table.
Put your phone down.
Dante didn't look up from his plate, but everyone, including his parents, flinched at the cutting steel in his voice. After a drawn-out second, Lucas straightened, set his phone to the side, and picked up his knife and fork. Just like that, the tension dissipated and conversation resumed. "If you ever tire of the corporate world, you should become a babysitter," I whispered to Dante while Johnny waxed nostalgic about his last trip to Indonesia 5 years ago. "I think you'd do great."
I'm already a babysitter.
Dante slid the words from the corner of his mouth.
31 years with no promotion. I'm ready to resign.
He grimaced at a speck of stuffing on one of his green beans and shoved the offending vegetable to the side. A laugh bubbled up my throat. "Perhaps you should. I think your charge is all grown up."
Do you really?
Dante cut me a skeptical glance. "Well?" I flicked my gaze at Luca, who was shoveling food in his mouth and sneaking peeks at his phone when he thought his brother wasn't looking. "To an extent. But you're his brother, not his father. It's not your job to babysit him." Dante assuming a caretaker role was a natural consequence of his parents' abandonment, but it was a heavy burden for one person to bear, especially when the cared for was a grown man who seemed content to let his brother do all the heavy lifting. The tiniest flicker passed through Dante's eyes.
It's always been my job. If I don't do it, no one else will.
Then no one does it. You can support someone without fixing everything for them. They have to learn from their own mistakes.
You seem very passionate about this topic.
A hint of amusement laced his words. "I don't want you to burn out, but if you take on too much for too long, you will." My voice gentled. "It's not healthy, physically or mentally." Dante was 36, working a high-stress job with a high-stress family. He had little to no downtime. If he kept this up... My stomach tightened. The thought of anything happening to him bothered me more than it should have, and not just because he was my fiancé. The flicker in his eyes returned, hotter and brighter. His expression softened.
Enjoy the meal, Miyakata. Don't let my family bullshit ruin it.
A velvety flutter brushed my heart. "Don't worry, I can enjoy good food under any conditions." It wasn't true, but it made Dante smile. I shifted, and our legs grazed beneath the table. It was a whisper of a touch, but my body reacted like he'd slipped his hand beneath my skirt and caressed my thigh. The conversation from the rest of the table fell away as the mental image of his touch entered my bloodstream in an intoxicating rush. There must be an invisible thread connecting my fantasies to his mind, because black bled into the edges of his eyes like he knew exactly what I was picturing. My pulse drummed.
So,
Luca's voice snapped the thread with brutal efficiency. Our heads jerked toward him in unison, and my pulse pounded for an entirely different reason when I noticed the speculative gleam in his eyes. The table was too large and our voices too low for him to have heard us talking about him, but he was clearly up to something.
how's the wedding planning going?
Luca asked.
Fine.
Dante said before I could answer. The softness was gone, replaced with his usual curt tone.
Glad to hear.
The younger Russo took a bite of turkey, chewed, and swallowed before saying,
You and Vivian seem to be getting along great.
Dante's jaw hardened. "Of course they're getting along great," Janice said. "They're in love. Honestly, Luca, what a silly thing to say." I pushed my food around my plate, suddenly uneasy.
You're right, sorry.
Luca said a tad too innocently.
Just never thought I'd see the day when Dante fell in love. Enough.
Dante's tone was sharp.
This isn't a round table on my love life.
Luca's grin widened, but he heeded his brother's warning and didn't say any more after that. After dinner, Dante, Luca, and Johnny cleaned the dining room and took out the garbage while Janice and I did the dishes. "I like the way Dante is around you," she said. "He's less Uptight? Normally I would have never been so blunt to the man's mother, of all people, but wine and days of sun had loosened my tongue. Yes, Janice laughed. He likes things done a certain way, and he's not afraid to tell you if they don't meet his standards. When he was a toddler, we tried feeding him broccoli with a bit of mashed potatoes on it. He threw the plate on the floor. $300 Wedgwood. Can you believe it? She shook her head. I didn't ask why she'd been serving a toddler food on Wedgwood china. Instead, I broached a more sensitive topic, one that had been weighing on my mind since my beach conversation with Dante. Was it hard saying goodbye to him and Luca? Her movements stilled for a split second. I see he's been talking to you about us. My bravado retreated in the face of possible confrontation. Not that much. At the end of the day, Janice was Dante's mother. I didn't want to antagonize her. It's okay, darling. I know he's not my biggest fan. Truth be told, I'm not a great mother, and Johnny is not a great father, she said matter-of-factly. It's why we left the boys in their grandfather's care. He gave them the stability and discipline we couldn't. She paused before continuing in a softer voice. We tried. Johnny and I quit traveling and settled in Italy after I found out I was pregnant with Dante. We stayed there for 6 years until after Luca was born. She ran a dirty dish under the water, her expression far off. It sounds bad, but those 6 years made me realize I wasn't cut out for domestic life. I hated staying in one place, and I couldn't do anything right when it came to the boys. Johnny felt the same way, so we came to an agreement with Dante's grandfather. He became their legal guardian and moved them to New York. Johnny and I sold our farmhouse and, well, she gestured around the kitchen. I remained silent. It wasn't my place to judge other people's parenting, but all I could think about was how Dante must have felt, having his parents give up on him because taking care of him was too hard. Then again, perhaps it really was for the best. Nothing good came from forcing someone to do something they didn't want to do. You must think we're terribly selfish, Janice said. Perhaps we are. There have been many times when I wished I was the kind of mother they needed. But I'm not. Pretending otherwise would have hurt the boys more than it helped. Maybe, but they're both adults now, I said carefully. I think they would like to see their parents more often, even if it's only for milestones like birthdays and engagement parties. Luca, maybe. Dante... She clucked her tongue. We had to twist his arm to get him to Bali. If it weren't for you, he would have brushed us off with another excuse about being too busy with work. I wasn't surprised. Dante gave me the impression of someone who held a grudge for decades. I'm glad he has you now. Janice's smile returned, a tad more wistful than before. He could use a partner. He takes too much care of other people, and he doesn't take enough care of himself. 3 months ago, I would have laughed at the idea of anyone describing Dante as caring. He was moody, hot-tempered, and dead set on getting his way. But now... My mind flashed to our conversation on the beach, our snack night in the kitchen, and the thousands of little moments that revealed little glimpses of the man beneath the armor. I'll be honest, I was skeptical about the engagement at first. Janice handed me the freshly scrubbed plate, which I wiped and placed in the drying rack. Knowing Dante, I wouldn't put it past him to marry someone strictly for business purposes. A concrete block formed in my chest. Our families work in similar fields, I murmured, so there is a business element to it. Yes, but I've seen the way he looks at you. She ran the last dirty dish under the water. It's not about business. She was wrong, but that didn't stop my pulse from spiking with anticipation. How does he look at me? Janice smiled. Like he never wants to look away.
Chapter 9.
All Well, that has been King of Wrath. Hope you guys enjoyed today's episode. Let me know what you thought about the chapters as well as the thread that we got over today. I will see you guys on Friday if you're on Patreon, or I'll see you on the streams over the weekend. If not, I will see you next week on Tuesday. All right? Love you guys all, and peace.